Namaste. Today, for my sixth Navratri reading, I want to read two brief sections from When the Bright Moon Rises. One of them is on awakening the Shakti energy within ourselves, and then who is Saraswati, the internal and external creative force. So this is a story that begins in the Satya Yuga in ancient India, when the forest clans were coming out of the forest and forming small communities along the Saraswati River. That was the beginning of the Indus Valley Civilization, but it really should be called the Saraswati River Civilization. And there was a woman sage named Sage Gayatri who takes in, under her care, a young forest dweller part of a community who came out to live by the river, and her name's Sundari. And Sundari doesn't understand a lot. She's got a big heart, but her understanding of subtle spiritual principles is not very great. And Sage Gayatri develops affection for her. And she can't do what the other girls can do in terms of the practices, the meditation practices. So Sage Gayatri just invites her to come sit by the river with her, where she tells her stories. So here's one of the stories she tells her. Some weeks later, I was again called to meet with Sage Gayatri by the river. Today, I will tell you the story of Sausi Palomi. Her story is a very interesting one. She was born as a princess, the daughter of a Danava Raja. Do you know who the Danavas are? I shook my head. They are one of the Asuric tribes, sort of the demonic or aggressive tribes, meaning that they are generally violent and full of greed with no moral sense. Yet this daughter of the Danava Raja rose to be the wife of Indradev, the queen of the heavenly worlds. How can you explain that? Was she very beautiful? I asked. They say she was beautiful, but there are many magnificent women in the heavenly realms. She had another quality, and she wrote about this in one of the hymns of the Rig Veda. I will chant it for you. Close your eyes and contemplate the meaning. I closed my eyes and listened as she slowly began to chant, first in gentle tones, and then rising with a rush of waves. Her powerful incantations awakened a storm within my spine, like winds surging through me. As I listened, the rhythmic beating of her voice harmonized with the rising of the waves that were sweeping me, but soon began to calm down. When she ended, I was unable to speak at first. It is a powerful hymn, isn't it? She asked after her voice had trailed off. What did I just experience, Amaji? I asked quietly in a trembling voice. You experienced the Shakti, the inner strength, the divine feminine energy of the seer. That inner power is within all of us. I don't understand. Never mind. You will later. What do the words of the hymn mean to you? I hadn't paid much attention to the words, and so I didn't respond at first. Then she repeated a few lines and asked again. I don't know, Amaji. I guess her words indicate that she is a conqueror, achieving victory over the other wives of Indradev. It sounds to me like she is still an Asura using violent means. She laughed. Let's look at it. Remember, Indradev is the light-filled mind, and so his consort, Sausi, is the female aspect of that shining mind. At the beginning of the hymn, she calls herself a mighty arbitress, meaning she settles disputes and has the final say. Then she goes on to state, I am victorious, and my lord shall be submissive to my will. My sons are the slayers of the foe. My daughter is the ruling queen. I am victorious over my lord. My song of triumph is supreme. She then says she got rid of all the rival wives. But who are these wives that compete with the power of the higher mind? I looked at her blankly, and then she said, And then said, she is jealous of the other beauties in heaven. Sundari, she smiled. The other wives are the distractions, those temptations that seek to take away the concentration. She's conquered all the distractions, the lower qualities that associate with the mind, and this higher, shining mind, luminous mind, now rules supreme. She is in control of all her senses and wandering thoughts, her desires, words, and actions, in control of negative tendencies like selfishness and anger, and has attained the pure, light-filled mind. The senses will not control her, but rather they are submissive to her will. Her offspring, her good qualities, are helping her to achieve victory. They are her sons who overcome all distractions and temptations, and her daughter, the Shakti, is the queen. She calls these distractions her fellow wives because they are held close by the lower mind, beloved by it, you might say. She is in control now of the higher mind, the light-emitting intelligence. Do you understand? Squirming to make myself comfortable, I turned from her gaze and looked over the river without answering. It doesn't matter if you don't grasp this higher meaning. Your heart enabled you to feel the Shakti, the power of the poem. That is enough. And now I will explain what you experienced. The poet uses the vibration of sound to awaken the Shakti, the innate creative power, to conquer the lower mind. You see the physical form of the Saraswati River, don't you? I nodded, wondering why she was asking me such an obvious question. The Vedas speak of 7 sacred rivers. Do you know where they are? There's 7 rivers like this? I asked in amazement. She nodded. But the Saraswati is the mother river. I've told you everything in the Vedas has an outer and inner significance. The physical rivers are sacred because they feed life. Without their waters, we could not live here. But the Vedas are referring to an inner river. An inner river? I asked in amazement. She nodded. The river of prana, of life force, which runs in our body through 7 sacred channels. That is the true sacred river into which we must dip and purify ourselves every day. My grandfather spoke of prana, I remember. I think, I mused. The 7 sacred rivers are the centers of prana in the body. They flow unimpeded from their resting place at the base of the spine to their destination, in the same way as the outer rivers flow from their source in the mountains to their destination in the sea. When our inner rivers flow and when our inner river flows and reaches its destined place at the crown of the head, that is where the higher mind can be realized. The deeper meaning of the Saraswati is this inner flow of prana. She guides it to its destination here. She pointed to the crown of the head. This spot is envisioned by the seers as the beautiful lotus on which Devi Saraswati rests, the single point where all streams gather, the source of all inspiration. Hidden within this lotus are the mysteries of the universe, which she reveals. That is a lot for me to try to understand, I murmured, as I again looked out over the river, wondering how there could be an internal river. This hymn can awaken those sacred centers as it did for you, and it can also serve to strengthen the will. It speaks through the voice of the female creative power, the Shakti. I have chanted it so many times when I have been secluded in meditation and have been distracted. And each time I chant this hymn, my higher mind comes forth and slays all the lower tendencies, the co-wives that seek to distract the luminous mind. How many times this hymn has been my lifeline drawing me deeper into meditation. There is great power in the recitation and the chanting of the words. I can't emphasize enough, Sundari, how powerful this chant is. Memorize it and use it when you need. This is one of the first hymns the women here in the hermitage chant in the morning. And now perhaps it is time for you to return to the morning meditations. So I'm going to skip ahead to much later in the book. When Sundari, no longer living at the hermitage, has another visit with Sage Gayatri. Amaji, when I was living at the hermitage, you told me that one day you would tell me something about Saraswati Devi. She smiled. You remember that? I haven't forgotten anything you've told me, although I can't say I understand it all. I have the same question, actually. Is she a river or a Devi? She's far more than a river. She is the active creative power, that within us which inspires, transmits knowledge, and seeks to express itself through song. It is said that she rests on the tongue of the poet, and that it is she who breathes words into the poet's mind. But she is not only within us. The force we know as Saraswati is also bringing into being new stars, new planets, new life. She is the flower unfolding, the seed within you that bears life. She is that great creative force that moves through the universe, bringing the unmanifest into manifestation. She's all of that, I exclaimed. Now I will tell you her relationship to the river. For ages, the seers had been in meditation high in the sacred mountains where the waters were locked in ice. They were also there when the ice began to melt and the rivers began to form. Perhaps they even aided that process. Some of the seers say they heard the Devi's footsteps guiding the river in her downward flow through unmarked mountain passes. Some saw her hand caressing the river to stir her waters and generate life. Some saw her light body emerge from the watery depths, and so the river was given her name. She imbued it with creative power, and for millennia, poets and sages have gained their inspiration from that river, seated in meditation on her banks. That is why so many are drawn to gather by her side. Devi is also here in the Ganga. She is in all the rivers, but the Saraswati River holds a special place in the hearts of our poets because so many of their songs were inspired by her outward flow, which led them to the inner Saraswati, the inner flow of life, which in turn carried them to the oceanic mysteries of the universe. That is a lot for me to understand, but I am sure your words will remain with me for a long time. She nodded. What I am explaining cannot be grasped with the mind alone. It must be experienced, and that is the purpose of meditation, to give you that inner experience. Each one of us can attune ourselves with the same creative power that gives rise to the poetry sung by the seers. The sages were able to hear the words emerge out of the silence. We can do the same if we set our hearts and minds to it. I'll end my reading for today, and tomorrow I will have the last reading for Navratri at the normal time, 10:30 East Coast time, and I think that's 8 p.m. in India. Until tomorrow.